The harsh African savanna shimmered under an unforgiving sun, its golden grasses swaying in a breeze that offered no respite from the heat. Hidden deep within a precarious crevice of ancient, sun-baked rocks, a tragedy was unfolding. A gravely injured leopardess lay still, her breath shallow, each rasping inhale a testament to her agony. Her once vibrant, intelligent eyes, now clouded with pain and desperation, darted frantically between two tiny, vulnerable forms huddled close to her and the unseen, yet ever-present specter of approaching danger. She was Nyala, a creature of regal stealth, now reduced to a mere whisper of her former self. Miles away, and yet inexorably drawn into this unfolding drama, was Kaylin. An American wildlife photographer, Kaylin navigated the rugged terrain in her trusty, dust-caked Jeep, her long lens a familiar extension of her arm. She was on a solo expedition, driven by a deep, almost spiritual passion for capturing the raw, untamed beauty and often brutal struggles of African wildlife. Kaylin was a seasoned professional, her portfolio filled with breathtaking images of nature's majesty and its unforgiving realities. But this trip, unlike others, carried a profound personal resonance for her, a quiet ache in her heart that had settled there after a recent, heavy loss. The vast, indifferent wilderness often felt like the only place where her own grief could breathe. Her current quest was a rare bird, a flash of turquoise and crimson she'd been tracking for days. But the savanna, in its infinite wisdom, had other plans for her. The scent of something metallic, a visceral tang of blood carried on the wind, grew stronger as she ventured deeper into a less traveled gorge. Following an instinct honed by years in the field, Kaylin carefully maneuvered through a dense thicket of acacia, her gaze sweeping the landscape. And then she saw them. Not the bird, but Nyala and her two newborn cubs, barely more than bundles of spotted fur, hidden precariously in the rock crevice. Nyala was barely alive, a deep, ragged gash marring her flank, likely from the horn of a charging buffalo, a common, often fatal encounter for a predator too slow or caught unawares. Her body trembled with exhaustion and pain, her eyes holding a silent plea. As Kaylin watched, horrified, a low guttural rumble reached her ears. It wasn't a sound of the wind, but something far more ominous. A pride of lions. Their presence was unmistakable, the deep vibrations of their growls growing closer, carried by the very air Nyala struggled to breathe. Kaylin's heart hammered against her ribs. The scent of blood, Nyala's blood, would be an irresistible beacon for the predators. Nyala, she realized with a sickening lurch, had only moments before the lions discovered their hidden den. The leopardess faced an impossible, agonizing choice. Muster her last reserves of strength and try to escape, abandoning her helpless offspring to certain death, or stay and protect her cubs, risking a savage ending for herself at the jaws of the pride. Her instincts screamed for survival, but her maternal love, an even older, more primal force, held her rooted. Kaylin, a silent witness, felt the weight of that decision in her own soul. Before we delve deeper into this heart-wrenching tale of sacrifice and survival, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful wildlife stories like this one to light and contributes directly to vital conservation efforts around the globe. Watch on as we witness nature's most profound and difficult choices. The injured leopardess, her flank still seeping crimson, tried desperately to rise, a low guttural moan escaping her throat. Each agonizing shift of her weight sent tremors through her already broken body. Kaylin, through the powerful lens of her camera, watched Nyala's internal struggle, a profound battle between the primal instinct to survive and the overwhelming pull of maternal devotion. The leopardess pushed against the rocky earth with a front paw, gritting her teeth against the searing pain, only to collapse back into the dust, a heartbreaking heap of fur and muscle. Her eyes, clouded with suffering, darted towards the tiny, vulnerable forms huddled close, their innocent breaths barely disturbing the still air. The choice she faced was stark, brutal, and impossibly cruel. Suddenly, the air itself seemed to vibrate with a new, more immediate threat. A deep, resonant growl ripped through the savanna, closer this time, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of a gathering pride. Kaylin's heart hammered against her ribs, echoing the frantic rhythm of the approaching danger. She adjusted her focus, picking out the forms now visible on the distant ridge. The formidable alpha male, his mane a dark halo against the setting sun, leading the charge. His scarred face, a testament to countless battles, radiated an ancient predatory wisdom. His senses, honed over years of relentless hunting, would undoubtedly be drawn to the fresh blood that permeated Nyala's hiding place. The game was swiftly reaching its brutal conclusion. Kaylin felt a familiar, sickening lurch in her stomach, a visceral reaction to the unfolding tragedy. Her training, years of meticulous observation and unwavering adherence to the ethical guidelines of wildlife photography, demanded absolute non-interference. Yet, as her lens framed Nyala's tormented face, the raw agony, the silent plea in those amber eyes, Kaylin's humanity screamed in protest. Her fingers tightened around the cool metal of her camera, her knuckles white. She was a witness, a recorder of nature's relentless brutality, but her soul ached with a desperate, overwhelming urge to alter the narrative, to somehow change the inevitable. The cubs, blissfully unaware of the death approaching, stirred faintly, their small paws batting at the air. This innocence, juxtaposed with Nyala's impending sacrifice, twisted a knife in Kaylin's heart, tearing at the meticulously constructed walls she had built around her emotions. She thought of her own recent loss, the gaping void that still echoed within her, and Nyala's potential self-sacrifice resonated with a profound, almost unbearable intensity. How could she simply watch? A sharp, almost painful memory flashed in Kaylin's mind, a vignette from her early days in the field. She was a young, idealistic intern then, witnessing a similar, though less dramatic, struggle for survival. A gazelle, caught in the jaws of a cheetah, its frantic bleats filling the air. Her mentor, a grizzled old veteran named Elias, had placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his voice low and unwavering. Nature, Kaylin, is not a fairy tale. It is beautiful, yes, but it is also brutal, indifferent. Our role is to witness, to document, not to interfere. The moment you meddle, you disrupt a balance you can never truly comprehend. The words, once a cold mantra, now felt like shackles, binding her to inaction even as every fiber of her being urged her to defy them. That defining moment had solidified her professional resolve, reinforcing her commitment to observation over intervention, despite the emotional turmoil it often caused. Nyala, seemingly drawing on some deep well of instinctual strength, mustered a final frantic effort. She nudged her cubs with her nose, a soft, encouraging push, trying to coax them deeper into the shadows of the crevice, perhaps into a perceived pocket of safety. But they were too young, too small, too utterly helpless to understand the urgency in their mother's desperate actions. They merely blinked up at her, their eyes wide and uncomprehending. Each movement was slow, a testament to the agony racking her body, each strained muscle contracting against the overwhelming pain. The growls of the lions now filled the air, a terrifying chorus that promised imminent destruction. Nyala's time was running out. The air grew heavy with the scent of dust and impending doom. Kaylin, pressed against the rough bark of an acacia tree, felt her own breath catch in her throat as the savannah came alive with a new, terrifying symphony. The guttural grunts of the lion pride were no longer distant echoes. They were close, unnervingly so. Their massive forms, silhouetted against the African sun now dipping below the horizon, moved with an almost predatory grace, each muscular step bringing them closer to the hidden crevice. The tantalizing aroma of blood, fresh and potent, hung in the air, an irresistible beacon guiding them directly to Nyala's vulnerable sanctuary. Kaylin watched, every nerve ending screaming, as the lid lion, its scarred face a mask of brutal intent, sniffed the ground, its head lifting towards the exact spot where Nyala lay. Nyala, her body a canvas of pain and exhaustion, registered the change in proximity with an instinct honed by centuries of survival. Her eyes, clouded with agony, blazed with a fierce primal intelligence. She knew her time was measured in heartbeats. The cubs, oblivious in their youthful slumber, stirred faintly beside her. A surge of maternal love, raw and unyielding, coursed through her, overriding the crushing pain of her injuries. This was it. Her last, desperate gamble. With a guttural sound that was part groan, part silent prayer, she began to drag herself, inch by excruciating inch, away from the crevice. Each movement was a testament to her indomitable will, a defiant act against her failing body. She needed to create a diversion, a final selfless act to buy her children precious moments. Kaylin's hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped her camera. The lens, usually her shield, now felt like a conduit, channeling every ounce of Nyala's suffering directly into her own soul. She knew, with chilling certainty, what was about to unfold. This was the ultimate sacrifice, a mother's final stand against the inevitable. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of grief and awe. Yet her training kicked in, a detached professionalism clashing violently with her surging emotions. She had to document this. Every agonizing second, every pained twitch of Nyala's body, every flicker of defiance in her eyes. This footage would bear witness to a love so profound it transcended death, a testament to the brutal, beautiful reality of the wild. It felt like an honor, a heavy, heartbreaking one, to be there, to capture this mother's final heroic act. Nyala, with a strength she shouldn't possess, let out a pained roar, a ragged, desperate sound that pierced the twilight quiet. It was a sound designed to attract, to draw attention, to scream, "Here I am," to the approaching predators. The alpha lion, startled but immediately alert, swung its massive head towards the sound, its eyes narrowing. Nyala, using the last vestiges of her strength, pushed herself further from the cub's hiding spot, making herself visible, an obvious target. The alpha, deceived by the desperate gambit, immediately focused on her movement. The chase began, a brutal ballet of predator and prey. Nyala, despite her grievous wounds, managed to move with a surprising, albeit fleeting, burst of speed, drawing the leading lions further and further away from the crevice, from her precious, unsuspecting cubs. Each lurching step was a silent promise, a desperate prayer. For a fleeting, agonizing moment, Kaylin clung to a sliver of hope. Nyala, bleeding and broken, had managed to lead the alpha and two younger males slightly away from the immediate vicinity of the cubs. The landscape swallowed them for a few heartbeats, a brief reprieve from the relentless pursuit. Kaylin held her breath, her chest tight with a desperate, futile wish for a miracle. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could escape. But the glimmer of hope was as fragile as the setting sun on the horizon, destined to be swallowed by the encroaching darkness and the harsh realities of the savanna. Her lens remained fixed, capturing every movement, every desperate attempt, knowing that heroism, in nature, often came at the highest price. The glimmer of hope, so fleeting and fragile, was brutally extinguished as the full pride emerged from the tall grasses, their numbers overwhelming. Nyala, now completely surrounded, faced a wall of muscle and teeth. She fought valiantly, a last desperate act of defiance against the inevitable. Her powerful paws, once capable of bringing down prey far larger than herself, swiped through the air with weakening force. Each snarl that tore from her throat was more pained, more guttural than the last, a lament of a mother protecting her young until her very last breath. Her movements became sluggish, her magnificent body betraying her will, succumbing to the blood loss and the sheer exhaustion of her struggle. The lions, sensing her fading strength, pressed their advantage, their primal roars echoing across the savanna. Kaylin, a silent witness to this unfolding tragedy, battled an internal storm. Her professional duty, ingrained through years of rigorous training and the harsh lessons of the wild, dictated absolute non-interference. Document, observe, but never alter the natural order. Yet, her human empathy screamed in protest. The image of the dying leopardess, sacrificing everything, clawed at her conscience. Thoughts of intervention, fleeting but intense, flashed through her mind. What if she made a noise? What if she fired a flare? The repercussions, however, were swift and sobering. Intervention could endanger her own life, disrupt the delicate ecosystem, habituate animals to human presence in dangerous ways, or even worse, cause more harm than good to the very creatures she sought to protect. The fragile balance of the savanna, brutal as it was, maintained itself through these very acts of life and death. To interfere was to play God, a role she knew she was not equipped for, despite the agonizing pull on her heartstrings. The harsh African landscape, once a breathtaking panorama of life and vibrant hues, now felt like a brutal arena. The golden light of late afternoon cast long, ominous shadows, transforming familiar acacia trees into skeletal specters. The very air, thick with dust and the scent of blood, seemed to vibrate with the raw, untamed savagery of nature. The wind, which had earlier whispered secrets through the grasses, now carried the guttural roars of the lions and Nyala's pained cries, amplifying the struggle for Kaylin's ears. It was a stark, unforgiving reminder that survival here was earned, often at the highest cost. Nyala's strength finally gave out. With a pathetic whimper, she collapsed, her magnificent body falling heavily to the dusty earth. The lions closed in, their hungry eyes glinting in the fading light. Kaylin had to force herself to keep filming, the camera an extension of her horrified gaze. Her hands were steady, miraculously, her focus absolute, even as tears blurred her vision. This footage, she knew, would be more than just a record of a hunt. It would be a powerful testament to a mother's boundless love, a poignant story of ultimate sacrifice. Every agonizing second, every detail, every last, defiant twitch of Nyala's tail was painstakingly captured, etched forever onto the digital sensor. It was a burden she would carry, but also a sacred trust. Amidst the chaos, as the lions moved in for the kill, Kaylin's long lens, almost instinctively, swung slightly. Through a gap in the rocks, she caught a brief, heart-wrenching glimpse of the cubs. Tiny, still, and almost perfectly camouflaged, they whimpered softly, their small bodies shivering not from cold, but from an instinctive fear. They were hidden, yes, but no longer truly protected. They were oblivious to the full horror of their mother's sacrifice, yet they sensed the profound shift, the sudden, terrifying void their mother's desperate fight was about to leave in their young lives. Their future, fragile and uncertain, now hung precariously in the balance. The glimmer of hope, however faint, was brutally extinguished. The full pride, now fully aware of their prey, closed in with terrifying efficiency. Nyala fought with a ferocity born of desperation, a last, valiant act of defiance against the inevitable. Each swipe of her paw, though still powerful, was noticeably weaker, her snarls more pained, less commanding. She was a magnificent creature, even in her dying moments, a beacon of raw, untamed spirit. Yet, the numbers and the sheer power of the pride were overwhelming. Kaylin's lens, usually an objective tool, now felt like an extension of her own burdened consciousness, capturing the chilling reality of nature's relentless cycle. She watched, a silent, unwilling observer, as the battle-scarred alpha male delivered the final crushing blow. A profound stillness fell over the savanna, thick and heavy, as the lions eventually moved on, their hunger sated by the tragic feast. Only the distant, almost mocking calls of other nocturnal animals broke the eerie silence, a stark reminder that life, even after such profound loss, continued its ceaseless rhythm. The golden hues of dusk had given way to the deep indigo of night, casting long, menacing shadows across the desolate landscape. Kaylin slowly lowered her camera, the weight of the moment pressing down on her with an unbearable force. Her hands, which had so steadily documented Nyala's final moments, now trembled uncontrollably. Tears streamed down her face, hot and unchecked, a torrent of grief for the magnificent leopardess, and a raw, aching sorrow that resonated with her own recent personal loss. It was a grief mixed with an overwhelming sense of awe for the raw power of nature, for the maternal instinct that had driven Nyala to such an ultimate sacrifice. A profound emptiness settled within her, a void where hope had briefly flickered. Yet paradoxically, she also felt a strange sense of honor, a heavy privilege to have witnessed such a powerful, tragic act of love. The savage beauty of the wild had never been so stark, so devastatingly clear. After what felt like an eternity, Kaylin cautiously, painstakingly, began to approach the den. Her senses were on high alert, scanning the silent savanna for any lingering threats, ensuring the lions were truly gone, swallowed by the vast darkness. The air still carried the metallic scent of blood, a grim testament to the recent brutality. As she neared the rock crevice, a faint, almost imperceptible whimpering reached her ears. Inside, huddled together for warmth and comfort, were the two tiny cubs, now completely alone, utterly exposed to the unforgiving world. Their soft, vulnerable cries were a heart-wrenching symphony of helplessness, echoing the vast chasm left by their mother's absence. Their chances of survival, Kaylin knew with a cold certainty, were virtually zero without their protector. Every predator in the savanna would view them as an easy meal. Her previous ethical resolve, the steadfast commitment to non-interference drilled into her by years of professional training, now shattered into a million pieces. The sight of those tiny, trembling forms, so utterly dependent, so completely innocent, activated a different kind of human instinct within her, one that transcended professional guidelines and academic theories. It was a primal urge to protect, to nurture, a deep-seated empathy that resonated with her own feelings of helplessness after her loss. The rules suddenly seemed trivial, irrelevant in the face of such profound vulnerability. How could she simply document their inevitable demise? As if to underscore the immediate danger, a flash of movement on the horizon caught her eye. A lone hyena, gaunt and opportunistic, appeared, its lumbering gait eerily silent against the rustling grass. It was drawn by the lingering scent of the kill, and undoubtedly by the sudden vacuum of protection in the area. This new, insidious threat solidified the cub's fate. Without a mother, without intervention, they were doomed. Kaylin knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she had mere moments to decide. The line between observer and participant, once so clear, had blurred irrevocably. The weight of the situation pressed down on Kaylin, a crushing force that threatened to buckle her resolve. She had witnessed the ultimate sacrifice, a mother's fierce, unwavering love laid bare against the brutal backdrop of the wild. Nyala's selflessness, the image of her final desperate lunge into the jaws of death, was seared into Kaylin's mind. Now, standing over the whimpering, vulnerable cubs, all her carefully constructed ethical boundaries crumbled. The rules, the years of training that dictated non-intervention, seemed utterly meaningless in the face of such profound innocence and loss. Kaylin thought of her own recent grief, the hollow ache in her chest, and suddenly the instinct to protect, to nurture, became an irresistible current. She would not let Nyala's sacrifice be in vain. With a deep, shaky breath, Kaylin made a split-second decision, a monumental choice that defied every professional standard she'd ever upheld. She would intervene. Moving with a cautious grace born of respect and urgency, Kaylin approached the rock crevice. The air still carried the faint, metallic tang of blood, a somber reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. The two tiny cubs, barely larger than Kaylin's hands, huddled together, their small bodies trembling. Their eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and confusion, tracked her every movement. They let out soft, almost inaudible whimpers, a sound that tore at Kaylin's heart. She spoke to them in a low, soothing voice, her words a gentle murmur in the vast silence of the savannah. Reaching into her jeep, she retrieved a worn but clean blanket, its familiar scent a small comfort in the alien environment. Gently, so gently, she scooped them up, one by one, feeling the fragile warmth of their bodies against her skin. Her hands, usually steady and precise with her camera, now trembled uncontrollably, not from fear, but from the immense responsibility settling upon her. As Kaylin carefully pivoted away from the crevice, the blanket-wrapped bundles clutched to her chest. A flash of tawny fur caught her eye. A lone hyena, its shoulders hunched, its keen eyes fixed on her, emerged from the sparse bush. It was the same one she had spotted earlier, drawn by the scent of the kill, now sensing a new vulnerability. A low growl rumbled in its chest, a primal warning. For a fleeting moment, the hyena seemed confused by the human, its head tilted, assessing this unexpected interloper. But then, its predatory instinct flared, overcoming any hesitation. Its snarl deepened, a clear challenge. Kaylin's pulse quickened. The cubs were safe in her arms for now, but this new threat was immediate, tangible. She had to move, and fast. Adrenaline surged through Kaylin's veins. Clamping the cubs even tighter, she broke into a desperate run towards her vehicle, the loose sand slowing her progress with every step. The hyena, emboldened, gave chase, its guttural cries echoing behind her. Reaching the jeep, Kaylin fumbled with the door handle, her movements jerky with urgency. She practically flung the cubs into a sturdy, padded carrier she always kept for equipment, securing the lid with trembling hands. With a roar, the engine sprang to life. Kaylin slammed the door shut, locking out the snarling predator, and threw the jeep into reverse, spinning it around in a cloud of dust. She floored the accelerator, leaving the scene of immense tragedy behind, the hyena's frustrated cries fading into the distance. But in the back of her jeep, A fragile new hope, a defiance of nature's cruel hand, was beginning its uncertain journey. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long purple shadows across the savannah, Kaylin drove, the silent rumble of the engine a counterpoint to the turmoil in her mind. The weight of her decision pressed heavily upon her. She had crossed a line, a fundamental boundary between observer and participant. She had interfered, irrevocably altering the natural course of events. The ethical ramifications were immense, a complex web of consequences she would have to unravel for years to come. Yet, as she glanced at the carrier, hearing the soft rustle of the cubs within, a profound sense of rightness settled over her. The image of Nyala's sacrifice, her unwavering love, and the utter helplessness of her offspring had solidified Kaylin's choice. Some instincts, she realized, transcended even the most stringent professional guidelines. This wasn't just about saving lives. It was about honoring a mother's final, heartbreaking wish, a testament to a love that deserved to endure. The Jeep's headlights cut through the deepening twilight of the African night as Kaylin continued her arduous journey. Hours blurred into a relentless drive, the landscape a dark, featureless expanse outside her window. Her primary focus was the delicate cargo nestled in the back, spirit and legacy, safe but infinitely fragile. Every rut, every jolt of the rough terrain sent a fresh wave of anxiety through her. The cubs, too young to regulate their own body temperature effectively, needed warmth, sustenance, and above all, specialized care. Kaylin had made a quick, desperate call before losing signal, reaching out to Dr. Anya Sharma, the director of a renowned, albeit remote, wildlife rescue sanctuary she had collaborated with on previous assignments. Anya, a woman whose dedication to conservation mirrored Kaylin's own, had immediately mobilized her small team, preparing an incubator and emergency supplies, understanding the gravity of Kaylin's urgent, whispered plea. Finally, as the first hint of dawn painted the eastern sky, Kaylin saw the faint lights of the sanctuary. Relief washed over her, thick and tangible, almost bringing her to her knees. She pulled up to the main building, where Anya and two other veterinarians, their faces etched with concern, were already waiting. There was no need for pleasantries. The urgency of the situation spoke for itself. Kaylin quickly unlatched the carrier, gently handing it over. The team immediately sprang into action, whisking the cubs away to a pre-warmed examination room. Kaylin watched, her heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and lingering fear, as they meticulously assessed the tiny, vulnerable creatures. They noted the cubs' dehydration and malnutrition, clear signs of the ordeal they had endured, but to Kaylin's immense relief, confirmed they were otherwise unharmed. No obvious injuries from their brief, terrifying exposure. While the veterinary team worked diligently, Kaylin, her voice raspy from lack of sleep and raw with emotion, recounted the harrowing events of the past 24 hours to Anya. She spoke of Nyala's incredible bravery, her desperate diversion, her ultimate sacrifice. As she spoke, she pulled out her camera, navigating to the devastating footage she had captured. Anya watched, her expression shifting from professional concern to profound sadness, her eyes misting as Nyala's final moments unfolded on the small screen. Nyala made an impossible choice, Kaylin whispered, her own tears finally falling. She gave me just enough time to save them. The footage became a vital record, a testament to what transpired, an undeniable truth of a mother's fierce love. The sanctuary team, deeply moved by Kaylin's narrative and the raw power of the footage, expressed their heartfelt gratitude for her courageous, albeit unconventional, intervention. They understood the immense responsibility now placed upon them. Their commitment was unwavering, to raise spirit and legacy with the utmost care, with the ambitious but critical goal of eventual reintroduction into the wild, if possible. They knew the journey would be long and fraught with challenges, but Nyala's sacrifice had laid a moral obligation upon them all. Kaylin, feeling a profound sense of purpose rekindled within her, spent the next few days at the sanctuary, helping with the cubs' initial care. She carefully fed them tiny amounts of specially formulated milk, feeling the fragile nuzzles against her hand. It was during these quiet moments that the emotional bond began to truly form. She named them Spirit and Legacy, not just in honor of their mother's courage, but as a promise that their lives would be a testament to her memory, a glimmer of hope in the often brutal wilderness. Months unfolded with surprising swiftness, each day weaving a new layer into the unfolding saga of spirit and legacy. Kaylin, true to her resolve, visited the sanctuary frequently, her camera a silent companion as she documented every milestone. The tiny, trembling bundles she had rescued from the jaws of fate had transformed into spirited, curious young leopards. Footage showed Spirit, the more adventurous of the two, playfully stalking a simulated prey dummy, his movements becoming increasingly fluid and purposeful. Legacy, initially shyer, now mirrored her brother's growing confidence, her spots rippling as she pounced with surprising agility. The sanctuary, a haven nestled in a protected reserve, offered a semi-wild environment where the cubs could hone their innate skills under the watchful eyes of dedicated conservationists. They learned to navigate rugged terrain, to recognize the sense of potential prey and predator, and to understand the subtle language of the wild, all crucial steps towards a hopeful, eventual reintroduction. Kaylin often found herself sitting for hours, observing their progress, a deep sense of peace coexisting with the lingering ache of Nyala's memory. She reflected on that desperate savannah evening, on Nyala's impossible choice, and on her own split-second decision to intervene. The complexities of her actions continued to resonate within her, a constant whisper of ethical debate. Yet, when she looked at Spirit and Legacy, thriving under the African sun, she knew deep in her heart that she had honored Nyala's sacrifice. This wasn't a violation of nature. It was an extension of a mother's fierce, unconditional love, an act of preservation born from profound empathy. Nyala's spirit, she believed, lived vividly within her cubs, in their powerful strides, their keen eyes, their innate wildness. And it lived, too, in the story Kaylin passionately shared, a testament to a mother's courage that transcended species. Her experience had irrevocably altered Kaylin's perspective, transforming her from a documentarian of nature's harsh truths into an ardent advocate for its protection. She used her platform and the powerful footage of Nyala's last stand to amplify the critical message of wildlife conservation. She highlighted the tireless, often unseen work of sanctuaries like the one that housed Spirit and Legacy, emphasizing their vital role in rehabilitating injured animals, breeding endangered species, and educating the public. Her narrative stressed the delicate balance of ecosystems and the profound responsibility humanity bore in respecting and understanding the natural world, rather than merely exploiting it. Kaylin's story became a rallying cry, a poignant reminder that while nature could be brutal, it was also infinitely fragile and deserving of every effort to safeguard its future. The demand for Kaylin's footage and her personal account grew exponentially. She presented at international conferences, her voice steady as she recounted Nyala's ultimate act of love, her eyes conveying the raw emotion of that pivotal moment. Each presentation ended with a heartfelt plea, a call to action for viewers to support wildlife conservation efforts, to contribute to the critical work of sanctuaries, and to share this powerful story widely. She encouraged them to become stewards of the wild, to foster a deeper connection with the planet's magnificent creatures. Kaylin teased upcoming videos, promising more impactful narratives of survival and resilience, leaving her audience with a renewed sense of hope and a shared responsibility for the future of wildlife. The journey of spirit and legacy, once a desperate scramble for survival, had blossomed into an enduring symbol of hope, a poignant reminder that even in the face of tragedy, love and compassion could carve paths to new beginnings.